Welcome to the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts, Marc and Sean Castles, coming to you from Radio Waves Studios in New York City. Now, let's kick off the show.
Well, hi again, everybody. I am indeed Marc with Sean Castles alongside. And as promised, my friend, we went overtime last week, so the added time right now.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask one more Ronaldo question, one more, and then we'll move into Neymar here. Is when I was watching the game footage, as a director, you didn't show like they're up 1-0 and they're coming back. You didn't show the chronology of the game, but you showed the beauty of it. And then at the end, you have Messi and him coming together, and instead of them being at odds, it was like an extension of the family, which I thought was beautiful. But was that an active choice?
Well, I think I wanted to be realistic about it, and I think what you realise when you're inside that bubble with Ronaldo, and I think you'd be the same with Neymar or Messi or whatever those top players. There's a massive difference between what happens in their life and what's actually written about, and you realise that is just noise, and then but you also have to understand for sports journalists, whether it's broadcast or print or digital or what have you. They literally have to create a story every day, and if you're hanging outside by the training ground or whatever, you sniff around and you get asked try and get a little bit of gossip here, a little bit of this and that. And a lot of it's just noise, and it's print, it's filling in stuff. So I think what you realize when you're in the inner sanctum, you realize what a massive disconnect there is, and the players have to go, okay, they just have to sort of like shield all of that out. Now, the obvious thing would have been gone to say, Messi versus Neymar, and Messi versus Ronaldo, and they hate each other. And in reality, what you realise is that the older they got, and they're both very smart guys. You have to be that smart to get to that position. Is that they needed each other, and they're both super competitive, and so they actually really admired each other. And I think Ronaldo, there was a part maybe Ronaldo thought, Messi always gets the great press and people think I'm this and they love him. And that might have been a small part of what wanted him to kind of put his side of the story. But I think it's pretty accurate about the fact that he's just like, look, statistically, I'm this guy. I score this many goals. I'm comfortable with that. He's very good at what he does, and it's a polarizing opinion. And Ronaldo will be saying, I'm the best. That's okay. And there's Messi. But it was never, and I felt the first night we had dinner, they were talking about Messi, and it wasn't it's like, what's the little guy up to?
Yeah.
And it was definitely, but it was never, there was no brutality or animosity or anything like that. I never saw it, we heard it, witnessed it. It was an ongoing admiration. And I think Messi is the same. And it was pure. I think it was just pure coincidence. I mean, we knew Messi was going to be at the Ballon d'Or.
Yeah. And
I didn't know that we're in that holding area. I mean, it was amazing we even got access to that holding area.
Yeah, it's a great ending scene there.
And it was an amazing thing to witness as well and be there, because you literally have the world's best players and no cameras are allowed in. It's very discreet. It's very quiet. It's like a holding man. And then, literally was just there filming, and Messi walks in, and then his son's like, oh my God, it's my favorite Messi.
Even the son fans out, who sees his father's Ronaldo is fanning out. That's a decade ago that you recorded that, and they're still the best players. That's really amazing.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And then was really like, then Paul, my producer, was amazing. He was like, he's a massive football fan. And he went up to them, Messi's people, and was like, look, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. Is it okay to use that footage? And, that took a series of conversations. And, but, that was fun. I mean, I have to tell you this one. It just it reminded me of this story about, there's a scene where he's singing a Rihanna song on the plane.
Yep.
Right. So that was obviously really impromptu and great and, exciting, and he's singing, and it's a really sort of nice moment. Anyway, so we want to use that. Obviously, it's a great scene, but it's Rihanna. So, Universal, basically, we spend months going to Rihanna's people and her team Nothing. No response, not interested. And we're like, fucking hell. And like, we're putting it in the car and it's really good. And I don't want to let go of it. It's such an amazing scene. And so in the end, and it's like this thing with George, the Classico. It's like, you know, when you need to press the button.
Yeah.
So I went over, flew over to Ronaldo, and I said, Chris, I said, we're in a bit of a dilemma. I said, you know that scene? It's in the film. You've seen it with you singing. It's brilliant, isn't it? I love it. Fantastic. I said, we need to use it. And I really want to use it, but we cannot go through to Rihanna. And he goes, oh, okay. I goes, will you call her? Okay. So there's me, producer, Chris, and Ricardo. And there's the four of us outside. And we're basically thinking, right, what do we do? He goes, okay, let's text her. So it's like, so we started writing the text, and we're like, no, don't say that. He went, no, I think we should say this. So we were like the four of us writing the text to Rihanna. She's like, hey, we're da da da. And then, you know, after about 20 minutes of texting, come back and forth, she goes, Ronaldo says, can I use that music? She goes, yeah, of course you can. So it's like
all that work up for just
unbelievable.
Months and months of basically trying to, and that's, it says, speaks volumes about, I suppose, that they have these impenetrable barriers.
That only they can go. Only the peak celebrities can cross over. It's like that higher air. So moving on to Neymar here, that's a few years later. How did Neymar approach you? How did that documentary come together?
So Neymar's a slightly bit different. It's partly why I'm talking more about Ronaldo, because obviously I spent much more time with Ronaldo. Neymar was kind of like, it was more of a commercial documentary, because it was with DAZN.
Yeah.
So DAZN have their own ambassadors, if you like, and Neymar was one of them. And DAZN approached me and Partisan, who I do commercials with, and they were like, can you do a kind of a long form thing with Neymar, you know, and what is it? So it was, a lot of it was done remotely because we did it during COVID.
Oh.
So yeah, it's very different in that sense. So as much as it's a different kind of relationship, I had various Zooms with him and meetings with his team and what have you. And then I think the thing that was interesting with Neymar, I mean, his story, it was working out the really interesting parts of his story and what this was going to be about, and about what it is to wear that number shirt in Brazil. Mm-hmm. And there's a huge tradition of these types of players. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to basically, the pressure that's on you in Brazil to be part of that is immense. And so that was the story, and he kind of liked that story. And I think because he felt like there are other big legends that he's going to be, you know, with whilst you're telling that story. And it was a series of meetings, conversations. And I think the thing that really changed the dynamic with Neymar was that I found a really good, fantastic broadcast sports journalist in Brazil that had grown up with Neymar. And she always got exclusives with him. And because I knew it was much harder if you're doing it remotely, so I got her on board, and I was like, this is the film we want to do. This is how we've got this amount of time. This is stuff. So she became, so what happened was we only ended up, that whole film is based around a 4-hour interview with Neymar.
Really? So it was only one sit down with him?
Only one sit down with him. Yeah. Sorry to disappoint, guys.
No, sorry. That makes so much more sense with COVID now, because you got the black backdrop. You know, it makes so much more sense, because at that time, everyone was remoting in. You know, no one was able to go. There was a different world briefly. It
was a hell of a stressful shoot, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because we're doing it from remotely in London. We shot it in Paris. Partisan have got an office in Paris, so we used a Parisian crew. Everyone is social distancing.
Yeah.
Therefore, I wanted a big sound stage. It was in the middle of winter. It was freezing. And, you know, Neymar wanted to wear his T-shirt, even though it was absolutely freezing. And, you know, we had multiple cameras, and I shot it all in black and white. And, you know, and then managed to get stuff with him at the end, behind the scenes and stuff that we shot on film. And Neymar was, the thing about something like that is that you know that if you've got an allocated time, all your legwork has to be into getting to that point where he's going to give you as much of an honest interview as possible.
Yeah.
So you've really got to know what buttons to push. and you've got to take them in a particular direction. And that I work very closely with that journalist. And then I'd have people translating to me remotely in Spanish and in Portuguese, and it was, it's a technical feat, I can tell you. And it was yeah.
That's another question, because all of your documentaries are multilingual. And we're the Ultra World podcast here trying to find an international sports, and Mark and I are both monolingual, or at least I am. How
English, it's a great language.
Yes, I highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. But how do you work with that as a director? I mean, I actually don't know how many languages you speak, but it's a feat trying to. So you're just like me. How do you overcome that for the audience there?
Well, you usually have. So I just finished a film about an Argentinian president, and I was with him for 2 years.
Millet?
No, not Millet. It was the guy before him called Macri, and who ended up being the kingmaker of Millet. And I got the first main interview with Millet after he got inaugurated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And how that worked was, and obviously, again, someone like, you're working with a president. So someone like, he's the same sort of complications as Ronaldo, like they're very busy people. They move quickly. They've got security details. You've got all of those logistics to get through. They are obviously these huge intellectual heavyweights. So you've got to be on your toes. You've got to know what you're talking about. And he, the key was to have, he speaks English, but the key is you often have someone in your ear. So you have to find a very good translator, and they literally stick to you like glue.
Yeah.
And so I've got monitors and I'm listening. If I'm, what it's like when you're at the monitor and you're watching everything and you're moving quite quick, and they are listening and they're literally just giving me the headlines.
Interesting.
Kind of. So it's really intense because you've got to work out where you're going to go next. You've got to work out what your next scene is. You roughly know what it is. And you've got to think about, you got
to be really on your toes. I've only done a few of them, and it is more of an effort than people realize.
It's huge. And when you do long interviews, when you have that, and you've got simultaneous translation, and it is. And you get back, but after a while, you get used to it.
Yeah. You got to be exhausted after that. The mental power, I know, of just doing an hour interview in English is tough.
So if you're doing that all day and you're on the road, but also you've got to be really good about getting the right person to do that so that they become integral to the team. Mm-hmm. They understand the story, the way you're going, and they get an idea of the character. So they'll usually go, okay, now I know these are the topics that I know that are good for us.
I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to jump a little out of the box here, more towards our stuff, because you talked briefly about throwing stuff on your producer with the El Clasico. And I have a story here of when we were doing the Google shoot, we had Curb Free Corey, and we were going to bring him paragliding. Curb Free Corey is a Instagram or social media, celebrity. He was a wonderful guy. And you guys had the idea that we were going to take him paragliding in Salt Lake City, if you remember.
Yes.
And and I remember thinking of the insurance of that, of like, oh, okay, so we're gonna do this. How are we gonna get this together? And you're like, it's gonna work, Sean. Don't worry about it. We're all fine. I'm up until like 2 or 3 in the morning talking to the underwriters.
He's not able-bodied.
Yeah, let's just make sure we paint the mental picture here. This is a paraplegic paragliding. So we're talking, pardon the Google pun, but this is very meta, if you will.
Yes. Yeah. So I think the thing with Corey was what's exceptional about him was that he's severely, he's not able-bodied. He's a paraplegic, and he. And really quite, he can't move that much, and he always needs support. But he loves travel, and the whole idea behind Google was that it opened up his world. He could go anywhere he liked, and he could book the flights. And what became a virtual world from the computer that satisfied his curiosity for the world, he realized actually what's stopping me actually doing it. So that's what Google were interested in, their ability to sort of let him travel, and paragliding was one of the things it's like on his bucket list of things to do. So we're like, let's do that, and obviously I don't think about how much that's going to insure, But I also, it is obviously you are petrified when it's happening, because the last thing you want to, happen is something to go wrong. But it was, it was a logistical feat.
I will say it was beautiful footage. It was really an amazing morning, seeing the sun pop up, and he's got the paraglide on, and they're kind of jumping off the cliff, and he's, it was really impressive. And what I remember, as we were leaving, and you're like, let's go visit. We visited the Mormon church after. You wanted to see the big spire there, but you're like, by the way, we weren't really sure if the insurance was going to work out, but glad it worked out, Sean. And I almost had a heart attack. I remember that.
Yeah, I know.
And when you come back to the States, I introduced you to Chick-fil-A too. I remember pushing that we were going to have breakfast at Chick-fil-A, and you're like, I'm tired of your diet, Sean. And then you did enjoy it. You did.
I did. And when I come back to New York, that's what we will have.
Fantastic.
Just not on a Sunday.
I want to ask, what are the current projects you've got coming out? Anything for the audience to either stream, go to the theaters for them?
So I've got 3 films coming out this year. One of them is a movie, my narrative debut. So it's about it's based on a woman called Ramla Ali. She's actually a friend of mine. She's Britain's first female Muslim boxing champion.
Ooh.
And she's Somali by heritage, and she became British champion without her parents knowing, because it was obviously strictly forbidden. And then she married a good friend of mine who converted to Islam, and it's about her really, and about how all of the kind of the hurdles that she went through to come from nothing to basically to go to the Olympics, become British champion. So it's a kind of it's not a boxing movie, but even though it's set in the world of amateur boxing, there's a kind of love story. It's about race. It's about class. It's a migrant story. They left Somalia because her brother was killed by Al-Shabaab. So, it's very topical, and it's a very emotional film. And it's starring Jasmine Jobson from Top Boy, and Finn Cole, who was in Peaky Blinders, and what else has he been in? Animal Kingdom, and it's coming out in the autumn. So hopefully in a cinema in America soon.
In New York City, it'll definitely be here. Like I'm imagining, I'm looking forward to going to the art house to see.
She knows, man. She's quite a big celebrity now, Ramla. She knows Mandani, and she's like, we're hoping it will be like we'll get a kind of a New York thing going.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, big red carpet. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So that's coming out. Then I've got a feature documentary that's doing a lot of festivals. That's about a guy who was recruited by the CIA when he was in prison, and he infiltrated Al Qaeda, and he was very high up in Al Qaeda, and then the CIA dropped him, and then he took the CIA to court, and he survived, and he's now a taxi driver in New York. It's called The Accidental Spy, and I'm making a movie version of it as well, and it's an incredible true story about how he infiltrated the very high echelons of Al Qaeda.
That is fascinating.
And then Islamic State. Yeah, he's an amazing character. He is an Albanian Muslim who married an Albanian woman. They have a family, and they all got caught up in the spy ring as well. It's an incredible story.
Now, are you finding these people, or are you being commissioned for these projects?
This one I got through a lawyer. You end up having contacts, you hear about them. It wasn't really on the wire, although there are, and that one we kind of found and then got live financed. Then another film I've got is about this Argentinian president. So that's 2 years with a kind of, inside South American politics, and you're traveling around with the president, and his backstory was incredible as well. He was I don't know if you've ever seen the series Succession.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but his family, one of the reasons why I really liked the story was that his father was an incredibly successful industrialist and multimillionaire, and Mauricio, the son's name, like Kendall, like Kendall Roy, was going to take over the business, and then he got kidnapped. And he survived the kidnapping. The only reason he survived the kidnapping is he persuaded the kidnappers that he was a massive Boca Juniors fan, as were they, and that if they released him, he promised that he would give up his life in the private sector, and he'd go on to become the head of Boca Juniors, which he did.
He did. So he came through on his promise there.
He came through on his promise. He transformed the team. And the team became incredibly successful. He then went on to become mayor of Buenos Aires, and then he became president. Wow. So it's an incredible story. Wow. So it's about that story, and it's about populism in South America, and it's quite epic in its scope, and yeah.
Extremely topical now with what's going on in Argentina. What was the name of that movie that's coming out?
That's called The Decision.
The Decision.
Yeah, so that's just about to start its festival run now. And then, I'm about to start a film about AI. I can't tell you much more than that. And I'm doing a film which is on hold at the moment about Gaza, and I can't really tell you much more about that either.
I can understand, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the idea of the palette of films.
I want to circle back to the football, to the soccer, with all this exposure that you've had over the last decade plus. Not being a big soccer guy, but have you latched on to any team to follow, as opposed to just these players that you've been documenting?
Well, I mean, look, if you're English, your chances are you got to play. It's like our dominant sport, and I grew up very close to Arsenal, and in between Arsenal and Spurs. So I was younger. I'd either go to White Hart Lane or go to Highbury. Half my friends are Gooners, half are Yidos. So you always grow up with it. I played a lot. We had a big five-a-side team for years. We were called Sons of Hoddle. So obviously in memory of Glenn Hoddle. Mm-hmm. And then we had our 11-a-side we were called Boca Seniors.
So it's funny that all these years later that you've come sort of full circle.
Exactly.
As it relates to that.
Full circle. So yeah, no, I mean, look, I love football, and I played it, and I was never as good as I would have liked to have been. Of course, I would love to play for England, but that never happens, but yeah, I just don't don't actively support a team, but I've been to lots of games, and I love it, and
And are you going to be making your way to the States at all for the upcoming World Cup?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Probably not.
All the airport stuff would rightfully scare anyone from coming into the States right now.
Yeah, I know you guys are under, yeah. Interesting.
It is an interesting time, to say the least.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Hey, so really, the last question I have for you, and I know Sean's got a million other things to talk to you about, but the last thing I had for you was, if we were to liken you to Captain Ahab, who is the next white whale for you in terms of either a soccer personality that you'd like to tell the story about, or is there anybody else in the sports world at all that you have on your radar?
That's a very good question. I haven't, so not necessarily sports. So what's happened is with Ronaldo, I did Ronaldo, and then I got access to Star Wars. So I worked with Lucasfilm. I was on Star Wars for 2 years, and I made a big film about that. And then I remember I was negotiating with the Vatican to make a film about the Pope. Mm. And in the end, I missed out to win. I think Wim Wenders got the film. So it's kind of like, and then I was thinking, okay, so in some ways, after you do Ronaldo, it's like, are there big players? I mean, I got offered a film about Mbappe, and I was kind of like,
yeah,
you kind of want to do different things. And I'm not saying, no, my AI film is something like that.
Okay.
It's like trying to take on AI,
I'm already in if you're taking it on. If you're taking it.
But it will give me some thought about who would be the next big whale. Yeah.
Have they may not even have shown their face yet, because things keep transforming so fast in the world, whether it's tech, sports, finance, whatever, politics. It feels like it's really evolving fast.
I mean, I think I've done a film with a president. It's much harder when they're in office, because people are suspicious whether you'd ever be able to make an objective film.
Sure.
You know, I tried to when I was with Millet. I would have loved to have made a film about Millet. You know, I mean, he's such a character and such a divisive character. But again, you know, the elements of control nowadays that exist around, around the comms departments, and you know, it's very hard to sort of get something.
Any access,
and then what it will be kind of controlled access. I don't know. Maybe I should have made a film about Melania.
Too late now.
Brett Ratner got in there, you know.
Yeah, big surprise there. Before we go here, I got an idea off the top of my head here. Bashar channeling, you know, that guy who says an alien speaks through him and he's taking Instagram and social media by storm. That would be. I actually could see you doing a great job with him. His name's Daryl Anka.
Bashar al-Assad.
We'll see what
I'm not
going
to go to Russia. Two, I don't think I want to give that guy.
No, he's in the States. The guy's name is Daryl Anka, and he.
Send me a link to him.
I will send you a link. For those listeners, it is a very interesting Instagram hole there, but.
Okay.
I'll text you it after this because he is very unique.
Well, he's a filmmaker too.
Hey.
So yeah.
Well,
you may have competition telling his. he might want to tell his own story.
Yeah, it's true. He's true. He's got those conventions everywhere,
and he's getting up there in years too. So you better hurry.
Well, Anthony, I want to thank you for coming on here today. It's really, truly fantastic to see you. For Marc and Sean, I'm Sean Castles. Thank you here, Anthony, and audience. We'll see you soon.
This has been the Ultra World Podcast, the soccer fan's voice from the stands, with your hosts, Marc and Sean Our executive producer is Sue Zizza. Marc and Sean Castles are co-producers. David Shin is our master engineer. Assistant producer Avery Gehrig, and I'm Alicia Antwine. To be a guest on the Ultra World Podcast or learn all about sponsorship opportunities, send an email to ultraworldpod@gmail.com. Be sure to follow the show on all the social media platforms at Ultra World Pod. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved, Ultra World Podcast, LLC.